All the time, I hear this advice and it's just bad advice. I hear it all the time across so many different disciplines. Just niche down. Just find that subcategory of something and really take full advantage of it. Now, on the surface, this isn't bad advice. In fact, it's very helpful because if you are trying to compete in a broad space, it's going to be very difficult to stand out, to differentiate yourself, especially when you are competing against big names, established players. What can you do to stand out? However, the reason that this is a problem is because when people are talking about niching down, most of the time what they think about in their heads is, okay, I'm not just going to sell sleeping bags. I'm going to sell sleeping bags for babies or dogs or avid hikers. On the surface, none of this is problematic, except if you are focusing your business around a product type, then you are greatly limiting your growth. And not only that, but you are really failing to create the moat that you're going to need to be successful. So instead of niching down, you should do this other thing that we'll get to in a minute. So most of the time, as I mentioned, people are thinking about niching down in terms of targeting a specific market segment or interest. Pickleball, Taylor Swift, homeschooling parents, carving out a niche in an already existing category, breaking that category down into something that maybe hasn't been exploited yet. The problem with this is not just that it's not defensible, but it's very vulnerable to trends. So pickleball is having a moment right now. Probably nobody knew what pickleball was even just a few years ago, and now it's everywhere, from Taylor Swift on her social media to just around me here in Las Vegas. There are a number of facilities popping up that are social pickleball courts where they have food, almost like a Topgolf, but for pickleball. Mind-blowing to me. But what happens when pickleball isn't cool anymore? What happens when it's the next sport? If you are just targeting pickleball, you're really going to be limiting not only the kinds of relationships that you can forge, but your potential longevity that you have as a business and a brand. And so we need to find a way of being able to carve out a competitive edge in a way that isn't reliant upon trends and that also isn't vulnerable to competitors coming in and doing the exact same thing. Because that's also a really big problem, is so often people do an amazing job and then they start getting a lot of attention, and then suddenly all these other people that don't like to come up with creative ideas of their own see, oh, there's a lot of demand there. You know what? I'm just gonna come in and I'm gonna sell it cheaper, or I'm just going to sell it at the exact same price, but I'm going to be more aggressive with my advertising spend, or I'm just gonna ride this wave of increased demand and traffic and attention, and then when this dies down, I'll move on to the next thing. Business owners and marketers and key decision makers, be it after talks that I've given, during podcasts, or people approaching me that I'm working with, they're constantly asking me, Emma, what can I do to regain this advantage that I used to have? I have all these copycats that have come and they're stealing away my business and I don't know what to do. Or maybe they're in the category of, we've built all of this awesome momentum and we just want to make sure to preserve that and really build on that so that we have a business that has that longevity, that is going to command a hefty, awesome exit one day, or is going to create that generational wealth. And really, it all comes down to this. I'm wondering now if you might have some ideas percolating in your mind, perhaps some thoughts as to what you can do to create a more lasting moat, something that is defensible, something that you can really sink your teeth into building a long-lasting business. And if that idea that's coming to your mind is build a brand, then you're thinking in the right line. Because rather than just carving up a category into ever increasingly small pieces, if you think about a group of people that you're serving and an identity that you are representing with your business, and you foster connection and conversation between those two things, it's not just about the trends, and it's not just about being the first mover to that particular category. It's about establishing something deeper than that, and something that is defensible when people start seeing what a great job you're doing and they want to copy you. This allows you to build connection. This allows you to determine what price point you want to sell at confidently. So you need to understand what you stand for. You need to build a brand identity. And two really great examples of this, and both of these are pretty intense, but I like choosing intense examples because they really highlight the concept that is sometimes difficult to really digest, especially if you're new to this space. And so two companies that do a really fantastic job of this are Black Rifle Coffee. First off, which Black Rifle Coffee, I've spoken about this in videos before, they are a veteran-owned coffee company. And so you could say if they were niching down, then they could just be a company that is selling a particular type of roast from a particular type of place. However, they've built out an identity around their business so that they are a veteran-owned company that stands for a certain set of values and principles. And then as such, they are really speaking to a very set group of people who are going to feel compelled and excited by that. Along the same lines, we have Liquid Death, which they're selling water, now teas and some other products, but primarily a water company. And they are also very clear in who they are. They are willing to ruffle feathers and upset people and turn people off by their somewhat edgy marketing. But all of that is very in line with who they are. They're not just making choices for the sake of making choices. They are making choices that are in line with who they are as a brand. And in both of these cases, if someone else were to come along and really try to mimic this, it would feel like a copycat. It would lack that authenticity and people would be able to tell the difference. So an example of this might be Skechers Bob's shoes, which is a direct copy of the Tom's shoes that you might be familiar with that were very popular probably 10 years ago or so. And Tom's shoes, they're very simple construction. They are distinct looking, but I wouldn't necessarily say that they were ever fashion forward or stylish, but they still became very popular in large part because of their social agenda in donating a pair of shoes every time you bought a pair of shoes. So you're able to feel good with your purchase and then demonstrate your altruism by wearing around these unusual looking shoes. Skechers Bob's shoes, even the name is a pretty much direct copycat. That one syllable, very ubiquitous, simple American name does the same thing. Bob's are also very simple in style. They have a little bit sometimes of that boxy toe that is very distinctive of Tom's. And rather than donate a pair of shoes to a person, they donate a percentage of the sale to animal organizations and shelters. Do we see a similarity? So obviously, this is not a cornerstone of who Skechers is as a brand. And so there isn't that same level of authenticity that really gives it that connection with customers in the way that Tom's has been able to achieve. And so the next time that you're thinking about how can we be more competitive? How can we grow into the future? Or perhaps you're starting something new and you're asking yourself, what am I going to do to be unique? Don't go niche. Build a brand and be bold. And if you want to know how to do this, then watch the video that's coming up right now.